ago, gave a service, and he mentioned father's helicopter crash. And maybe some people, the kids, you don't know there was a helicopter crash. It was like 2008. And anyway, John had mentioned it. I forget what he was talking about, but I know he mentioned it. And so that Sunday, I went home and started searching just information about the helicopter crash. And you know, when you get online, you can go out down some rabbit holes, right? And completely get lost. I had found on the Korean National Transportation Safety Board's website the report of the crash. I mean, it had details. I mean, it was a 70-page document that I should have, but I don't have it. But this report, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I was shocked because this is 2008 when the accident happened, correct? July 19th.
It looks like it's there. Father's helicopter crash?
No, it's not connected.
It doesn't open up?
It doesn't open up, no.
All right.
But at the time, there was one testimony by some dude in the lake or the water, right, or the river next to where the helicopter crashed. And one of his testimony was, I saw angels gently guiding the helicopter down. You know, at the time, we kind of all heard this testimony. I thought, well, okay, so it wasn't that bad. You know, everyone survived, and angels brought the helicopter down. I thought, okay. But for whatever reason, when John mentioned, I thought, you know what, let me actually dig into this a little bit deeper. And I'm not saying what that guy saw wasn't true. Maybe he did see it. God bless him. But what actually happened was catastrophic. You know, we all saw the picture afterwards. The fuselage of the helicopter was completely burnt down. It was nothing, right? But that's after the fact, right? But the actual story, the testimony, because within the report, they have wonderful photographs. Not wonderful, but they have photographs of the crash site that I hadn't seen before. What the first photograph that really made my jaw drop, Stephanie Sharon, I can't access my Google account. So I had all the documents I can't get. So anyway, so I'm doing it.
So this is good. This is a good one.
So anyway, what I found, it put me in shock, actually. I couldn't believe. Well, the one photograph, the first one that I remember that really, and this is 2 years ago, at least, maybe 3 years ago, that really, it showed the path of the helicopter flying into the mountain. So it's a photograph looking down at the actual crash landing space, right? And the mountain is covered with trees. And when the helicopter came down, it's like a triangle, right? So it touched down and it ran into this mountain, and the speed at which it was going was about 92, 93 miles an hour when it actually hit the ground. It's not insignificant. 90 miles an hour hitting the side of the mountain. And the side of the mountain, the angle was 45 degrees. Does anybody know what a 45-degree angle looks like? Something like that.
Half a 90.
Yes, half a 90. Like that's steep. Like if you're skiing down that, it's legit, man. And the weather at the time, there was a typhoon, and it was coming through Seoul, and the flight of the helicopter was from Seoul back to Cheongpyeong, and they were following the Han River. And it's not a long, did it connect? I will just explain, and it will actually probably be shorter, actually going through the documents. But okay, so the first photograph that really shocked me was the overhead view that was taken by the Korean Investigation Board, correct? And it's probably the length of where the helicopter first touched the top of the trees to the point where it actually crashed was probably about like a football field and a half. So we're talking about like 200 yards. And it's just this swath of trees that are cut down, and I'm looking at this, and it's just like, wow, like it really is no joke flying into a side of a mountain. And from what I understand and from what I've read, helicopters usually don't survive these types of accidents. A perfect example is Kobe Bryant. A year and a half ago, Kobe Bryant, same condition, not same conditions, but there was fog in California, crashed, everyone's dead. And this helicopter that they were flying, it's a large helicopter. It's it can hold 16 people, and it's large. And the weather was a factor, of course. Pilot error was a factor. But just, I wish I could have these photographs. But the sight of the crash was unbelievable. And then the testimony of the people, because they had to interview the people, correct, inside of the helicopter. And their testimony was, we didn't know that anything was coming. There was no warning. There was nothing. All of a sudden, there's a huge, we crash, no lights, and there's smoke filling the cabin. And in the back of the helicopter, there's fire. One of the engines had caught fire and it was going to start moving. And kind of, if I had, there's more details of course, but if I had the point, the narrative of the whole thing, for me, looking at this, was that the helicopter had leaned to one side. It hit nose. I don't know if it tumbled or not. I couldn't understand exactly, but it laid on its left-hand side. And there's the cockpit. There's a VIP room with 4 chairs. Father and mother are sitting in chair 2 and 3, that they're facing forward, right? And then behind the VIP area is the section has like 10, 12 seats. And those are full of people. And so the helicopter came to a landing on its left side. Now what's facing up, now they're on a 45-degree angle on the side of a mountain. And so the only side the side that's facing up is the main exit and an emergency exit in the back. And like many of the testimonies were, it's filling up with smoke, there's fire in the back. The guy in the back near the emergency exit couldn't open up the exit, the emergency exit door, because the interior of the helicopter had been refurbished. And when they refurbished it, they put a plastic piece over the handle of the emergency exit. So in a panic, if you're unbuttoning your seatbelt and you're trying not to fall, and you can't figure out there's an emergency, there's no handle. But it's just a plastic part you had to pull off, and once you pull it off, it's there, but in a panic, you can't think straight. And so he stopped trying. And so, in the front of the cabin, at the main entrance, father and mother are here. Everybody's injured. The main pilot had serious injuries. The co-pilot had less serious injuries. There's a wonderful graph in this. A graph in here that has father and mother, their seating assignments, had a list of father's injuries, a list of mother's injuries, their ages and recovery times. And it was marked S, as in serious, and like a 12 to 14 weeks recovery time, right, for these injuries. So, they crash land. The helicopter is on its side. I think it's like a flight attendant who's there. She's facing this way at the front of the helicopter. So the cockpit's in the back. She's looking out front. There's a lavatory. There's a bathroom, right? So it's on its left-hand side. There's a bathroom here, like a little cabinet, right? So the only way they can get out is 2 people are on this cabinet on top of the lavatory door. And 2 people are bringing people up out of the helicopter. 2 other people are on top of the side of the helicopter pulling people up. And then there's 1 or 2 people down and helping people slide off the side of the helicopter. All right? So it's a process. I mean, it's not easy, right? And you've got to be panicked somewhat, I would think, you know. And it's raining at the time. Their testimony, it's raining and it's still foggy in the mountains, so everything's wet, you know. And just reading that, and then I didn't realize, while I'm preparing for this morning, I'm thinking, you know, I'm trying to still understand this document, because it's translated from Korean, I'm still trying to understand. And then I realized, my God, like, it's on its left-hand side. The emergency exits can be accessed because that plastic cover is on it, which means they're not getting out. Which means that if this thing was on its opposite side, on the right side where the main entrance and exit is, you ain't getting out, you know? I mean, it's a 50-50 shot, whether you're on the left side or the right side. If it's on the right side, the main exit, which was easily accessible and getting in and out, is facing on the ground, and nobody can figure out, in a panic, how to unlatch these doors. When I realized that this morning, I go, oh, you had a 50-50 shot whether 16 people were going to burn to death. I mean, it's legit, man. Like, so when I kind of came to that realization this morning, I was like, wow, that's the point for us, I believe, is that it was so close to everybody dying, father and mother dying, and that's it. The story's done, right? You know, and the reason why I wanted to do this, to present this to everyone, is because Ann last week mentioned when she heard when Father passed. I don't remember that, but you know what I do remember? I remember hearing about the helicopter accident. I was still working for FedEx. I was living in Jersey. And I was driving to work at I started early, so I'm driving to work at 5 in the morning. And I hear on WABC 880 that, you know, Reverend Moon, Unification Church, you know, a helicopter accident, but everybody survived. And I'm driving to work. I'm thinking, oh, okay. And I continue on my day. You know? I'm a callous, you know, I'm a callous dude, you know. At that time, I didn't. It just went over my head, and I went on with my day. Okay, you know, but, you know, reading, after John mentioned it, after I went home, went down the rabbit hole, found this stuff, you know, it reminded me that, and why is this important? You know, in one sense, it's not important for you guys at all. It's my public apology, basically, to father and mother, you know. I mean, that I didn't care. I didn't care. Whatever. And that's, you know, I have that attitude about my life of faith a lot, right? You know. So it's important, maybe not but for me, to apologize to God and true parents that I can live my life without them, you know. But yet, yesterday, my wife and I were going through Jackson's birthday's tomorrow, our first son's birthday's tomorrow. And we're looking through all these pictures from 10, 12 years ago. Joy. Nothing but joy. And I'm texting these pictures to Jackson, texting them to Sam, texting them to my wife, to Chie, and we're just laughing at all of these photos from 10 years ago. It's pure kingdom of heaven stuff. Like, I can't imagine, like, my kids we're like your age, Tobias. And our kids are like 10 years ago, right? And I look back on that time, it was magical. I mean, even Chiani said, of course, like, Serena is that age now what the boys were 10, 12 years ago, right? She goes, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Like, something's missing. Like, it's the first time you're going through that stuff, raising your kids and all that. And and she said, it was really, I said, it's kingdom of heaven. And why? Why do I have this joy? Well, it's because, it ain't because of me. You know, it's not because of I'm so awesome. It's because, you know, God had grace and mercy on me. It had grace on me. But yet, I can still, even after realizing that I live in the kingdom of heaven because of what Christ and what true parents have done for me, I can still live my life without them. You know? And even like second gen, I tell my boys, I said, listen, you don't have to believe what I believe in a sense. Of course, it'd be nice. But at the very minimum, you got to respect Christ and true parents, because none of this exists without them and without their sacrifice and what they did. So at the very minimum, like, I don't mean this in a bad way, but so keep your mouth shut and just say thanks. You know? Because that is, I just try to keep my mouth, I don't actually keep my mouth shut. But just be thankful and grateful. That's why I thought that's important. And that I can live without them and without God. But yet, the only good things I have in life are because of their sacrifice and what they did. And it's easy to forget. And it's easy to lose perspective on that. A perfect example also is how we lose perspective on their Christ's and parents' sacrifice. I'm not saying bad about anything. Well, a couple weeks ago, had Sunday service talking about the Dalai Lama, right? And it's great. What a wonderful guy. Perfect. Wise, the whole thing. You know what he did?
He escaped.
He left. He left Nepal. Nepal, which is now under the boot of the Chinese Communist Party, he left. He escaped. You know, they're going to kill me and imprison me. I'm going to be disappeared for who knows how long. So he left Tibet when he was like in his mid-20s. When he was in his mid-20s, left Tibet. Okay. You know who didn't leave? Father. Father didn't leave. You know, during the Korean War, that dude walked back to North Korea. Like crazy. Nuts. Walked back to North Korea and stayed in a prison for 3.5 years. And there's that testimony he explains where he said, even now, if I think about Hung Nam, my whole body becomes tight. His throat. Think about that. Think about that. He volunteered to do that. He didn't have to. Like, in my mind, I think a lot of times, like, well, of course Father went to prison. Of course he went to, well, that's his job. That's what he was supposed to. No. He didn't have to. He has a choice. Somebody was up here, gave him the son, and he said, we didn't, I don't mean to criticize anybody. I don't, but our state leader, so explain about his experience in the church. Like, my family, but I had to leave because I had no choice. He goes, didn't we have no choice? We have no choice, right? I said, I'm thinking, no, we have a choice. You didn't have to do that. You chose to do that. Just like Father, he chose to go to North Korea. He didn't have to. But he chose to go to North Korea because why? Because he didn't do it for the world. He didn't do it for Cain. He did it for you. He did that for you. And he did it for me. He chose to suffer to the point of death. He died. He didn't do it for himself. Who does that for themselves? They don't do that for themselves. He did it for you. He did it for me. And because of that, I can look back from, 12 years ago, kingdom of heaven. Everything I have is because of that dude and mother, So it's easy for me to lose perspective on what really matters, and And like I said, I'm not criticizing the Dalai Lama, but he left. He walked away. You know, he chose to live. I'm not saying he doesn't say good things or he doesn't say smart things or wise things. He says he says great things. But, you know, okay. Communists want to kill him, but everybody else really loves the Dalai Lama. Who doesn't like the Dalai Lama? He's easy to love. You know, he's not a threat. He's not a threat. But again, I'm not criticizing anything. I'm just trying to understand the perspective of how we live. Recently, a lot of Sunday services, people throw Christians out, throw them under the bus. You know, like John, I'm not criticizing you, but when you went to that meeting, like the Christians, you said like they didn't have the you know, with the voting thing, they didn't have the something, you know, you know, we're easy to stand and, you know, criticize Christianity, you know, because, and why is that easy? It doesn't take any courage to say anything against Christians. Why? They ain't gonna do nothing. What are they gonna do? You know, their faith is, you know, take a hit and walk away. You know, we know they're not gonna do anything. So it's so easy to criticize, you know, say something that, you know, but what is a threat? I'm getting off on a tangent here. You know, okay, I will finish in 5 minutes. I'll finish in 5 minutes. In Japan right now, what the church is going through there now is really severe, you know, and it's heartbreaking in a sense, right? But when I first heard it and I talked to some people, nobody here, when I talked to people, our attitude as Americans, Westerners, was that, you know, they kind of deserve it, you know, because they fundraise, you know, we know how they are, right? That it's not that they deserve it, but, you know, it sucks, but, you know, the persecution, and the persecution is heavy and terrible. Is it a tragedy? Yes, it is. You know, for second generation over there, it's awful. I think they're getting kicked out of schools, they're being persecuted. But Father said, what is the greatest way to pay indemnity? It's persecution. It is persecution. And I pray they can hang in there. I pray for them that they hang in there, that they can swallow it and walk forward and not accuse, you know, whoever or something. Keep quiet, you know, and just go forward. And you know what? I don't know what time period they will receive the blessing, but it's terrible. I can't imagine the whole culture, the media, just because why? We're a threat there. We're a threat. You know, that's why they're being attacked, because they're a threat. You know, here we don't get persecuted. I don't know if we're not a threat. Maybe we're not a threat. I mean, I know I'm not a threat. I'm not out there proclaiming God's word and, you know, and being a threat. I'm not. You know, but they are. But maybe they are. That church there is. So, and I wasn't going to. Should I mention this? Yes or no?
Why not?
You sure? Okay. We're going to twist my arm. We're going to twist my arm. So, Father, this is my favorite speech, total indemnity. Father, persecution is really the fastest way to pay indemnity. Being persecuted unjustly. And what's going on in Japan, pray for them. Did you see the statement that Korean headquarters put out about that situation?
No.
Listen, the whole first 2/3 of the statement is about Chung Hyun Kwak, about giving back money. We want that. You stole it, give it back. The whole first 2/3 of that statement is that. And then the last third is, also we feel sorry, about Abe and everything, And I'm thinking, oh my, well, You got, no, you can't do that. Don't you walk? So I don't know what the right statement is or should be, but I don't believe it's that. Even if it's true, Father's way is to go, you suck it up, you don't complain, and you go forward, So, yeah, that's, so.
There's been some better letters, Jack, with Tommy Dibbett and.
I'm sure Tom's there, and
Some
yes.
really good letters are coming out.
Absolutely, and yeah, so God bless Tommy Dibbett. So, so pray for the Japanese, pray for that whole nation. So, does anybody have any questions? Anything about the accident or anything that I didn't explain really well? I wish I had some of these photographs. They're really unbelievable. And of the crash site, it's really, and seeing the testimonies, it's impressive. But yeah.
Send us an email with the link when you find it.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, put it in the weekly update.
Okay, all right, yeah. And, yeah, it's 12:45. Okay. All right, let's pray.
11:45.
11:45. Let's pray. Father, I really wanted to discuss True Parents' trials and tribulations, to discuss the helicopter accident that Father proclaimed was his resurrection, where he survived death and was resurrected. Father, at the time, I lived my life completely separate from you and from gratitude and from thankfulness. Father, I pray that every day of my life, every moment of my life can be a step to respecting the sacrifice that has been made to make my life so incredibly happy and joyful.
Yes, Father.
Father, this joy I do not deserve.
Father.
The things that where I come from is completely satanic and completely awful. But Father, you literally, and True Parents in Christ, reached down and grabbed me out of the muck and the mire and brought me into the light.
Yes, Father.
Father, I pray that I can walk with my head held high,
Father.
and with pride and True Parents and pride in Christ, and that I can become a vessel that can represent and speak the truth. Father, I pray that all of us here, that with our community, that we can represent what we believe properly and in a sacrificial and uplifting way. Father, the truth is tough, the truth is hard, and the truth is a threat to my own ego. But I pray that I can overcome my ego, overcome who I think I am, and truly become a son of True Parents.
Yes.
And of you. Father, I pray, I thank you so much. Father, true Father, I pray, I think you're here.
Yes, Father.
You're here, you're alive.
Yes, Father.
I hope you can accept my apology.
Father.
And I offer this prayer in True Parents' name. Adieu.
Adieu.